pillow or something? All right. Sorry about that. Good morning. How are we doing today? I mean, fall is in the air. It's always a comfortable 59 degrees in here, so you're good as long as you're prepared for the weather out there. That's the main thing. So, it's great to be with all of you this morning. My name is Dan. I'm an aspiring pickleball player. And I've played a couple of times. It's not as easy as Derek makes it out to be. In fact, my mom is here this morning. She lives in Nocatee in Del Webb, active adult. All of them will kick your tail in pickleball. They're serious about pickleball out there, aren't they? Yeah. We got a pickleball player with her today, so she brought a pickleball player. Awesome. So we are in a series called Local, where we're talking about what it means to live in community with each other, that God has called us to a community and is weaving us together as a community. And our base verse for this entire series is found in Ephesians 2, beginning in verse 19. So I'm going to start out this morning reading that as we move into what we're going to talk about today. It says, "Consequently, you are no longer foreigners and strangers, but fellow citizens with God's people and also members of his household, built on the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, with Christ Jesus himself as the chief cornerstone. In him the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. And in him you too are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by his Spirit." So the idea is that God is building us into a household, a community where he dwells with us by his Spirit. And as Derek closed out last week, one of the things that he said that really struck me was that he said, without each other, we cannot grasp how deep and how far the love of Christ is. Without each other, we can't grasp the depths of Christ's love for us. And so the case is being made here, and what a theme you'll see throughout this local series is that we need each other. We need each other. And one of the ways that we build this community together is through forging friendships. Forging friendships. Now, if we go back in time a little bit, the ancient Greeks considered friendship the greatest of all the loves. So we have one word for love. They had four words for love, different types of love. So phileo, which is the Greek word for friendship love, is also like where the word Philadelphia comes from, city of brotherly love. But you have other types of love too. Our individualistic culture is we're more self-focused, self-driven. And we tend to hold romantic love, which is eros, we tend to hold that as the pinnacle of all the loves. But as C.S. Lewis puts it, and you'll hear a lot of C.S. Lewis quotes today, he has a great book called The Four Loves, where he talks about one of these, talks about the four loves, one of them being friendship. He says this about friendship: friendship is the least natural of loves, the least instinctive, organic, biological, gregarious, and necessary. It has least commerce with our nerves. There's nothing throaty about it. I love that word, because like when you're in love with someone, like eros love, like it's throaty, quickens your pulse, turns you red and pale. Well, not friendship, nothing that quickens the pulse or turns you red and pale. It's essentially between individuals. The moment two men are friends, they have in some degree drawn apart together from the herd. Without eros, none of us would have been begotten. In other words, none of you would be here without eros. And without affection, none of us would have been reared. But we can live and breed without friendship. So it's not necessary for life. We don't have to have it. And so what we've done is we're not really sure how to do friendships anymore. We've really lost touch with how integral friendships can and should be in the life of a believer. If you call yourself a Jesus follower, we should make and forge friendships. We love shows like Friends, Band of Brothers, movies like Lord of the Rings or the Marvel movies, all these shows and movies that depict friendships. But if you're like me, what do we tend to do? We sit there and we watch these movies by ourselves, alone in our house. going, wow, I wish I had friendships like that, people that looked after each other like that lived life together like that. So what I wanted to do today as we start out is kind of look at what is the state of friendships in America? And thankfully, there's always research somebody's doing on this kind of thing. So in 2021, there was an article published by the Survey on American Life called The State of American Friendship. And I'm going to read part of this, and then there's some stats that go along with it as well. It starts out by saying the financial devastation wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic has been well documented, but less widely reported is the emotional toll many Americans faced as a result of quarantine requirements and self-imposed isolation. Nearly half, so 47%, of Americans report having lost touch with at least a few friends over the past 12 months. Nearly 1 in 10, 9% of Americans report having lost touch with most of their friends. The number of close friendships Americans have appears to have declined considerably over the past several decades. In 1990, less than 1/3, I think we have this depicted up here. Oh, look, 1990. Less than 1/3, 27%, said they had 3 or fewer close friends, while about as many, 33%, report having 10 or more close friends. This is in 1990. Only 3% said they did not have any close friends. Contrast that with 2021, where 49% say they have 3 or fewer friends, and 12% say they have no close friends at all. 12% of people compared to 3% in the 1990s. So you can see there's been a decline of friendships. And then it talks about the impact of religion on friendships. The report goes on to say that 23% of people who attend religious services multiple times per week, so that would be you're at a gathering here, maybe you're also in a city group, so you attend multiple times per week, report they are lonely once in a while, 1 out of every 4 people. That number jumps to 1 out of every 3 people for those that attend religious services once per week. So if you don't want to be lonely, go to more than just the Sunday service. Get in a city group once they open back up. For those that never attend church, which is none of you here because you're all in church, for those that never attend church, 50% report being lonely. There was another report that was done by a professor at San Diego State University. It says between 2000 and 2015, the number of high school students that get together daily with their friends has dropped 40%. You know why? Phones, social media. We could put that right at the feet of social media. And I'm amazed at my kids' friends. We're never like this as adults, right? We're sitting in the same room, all together, alone, because everybody's sitting on their phone. I see this a lot, in adults too, but a lot of times with young people, that we can be together, but alone. The Surgeon General has come out the last few years talking about loneliness as really being a medical issue that needs to be addressed in this country. So in 2023, this is a report released by the Surgeon General, said loneliness is far more than just a bad feeling. It harms both individual and societal health. It is associated with a greater risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, and premature death. The mortality impact of being socially disconnected is similar to that caused by smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. Well, stop smoking, go get friends. Have a greater impact on your health. Even greater than that associated with obesity and physical inactivity. And the harmful consequences of a society that lacks social connection can be felt in our schools, workplaces, and civic organizations, where performance, productivity, and engagement are diminished. One more thing that I found online with regard to friendships, and I thought this was interesting. So MIT, which is one of the most prestigious institutions in the country, maybe in the world, published something on their website for their international student population that we're trying to assimilate into American culture. And the report says this: Americans are typically polite, but they also are very private people. They want to be perceived as nice, friendly, and helpful, but mainly want to preserve their private space and not get too close to people right away. I have many acquaintances who I do not consider friends, but we are always friendly to each other. If you truly would like to get to know an American, ask them if they would like to get a coffee or lunch sometime. And yes, they might even suggest, let's get coffee or let's get lunch. And it seems like they don't really mean it. That's none of us here though, right? Anybody said, let's get lunch today? And it seems like they don't really mean it. However, if they are serious about it, they will propose a time and a place. Or if you'd like to make sure that they are serious about it, suggest a time and place and see if they follow up. Also, Americans really value their time, which is tied to their privacy and independence. They are so polite that they don't want to say, I don't have time to meet up. They would rather say, sure, and then not follow up. That's not us though, right? But that would be lying if you say that. They don't want to overcommit if they don't have the time or the interest. Don't take it personally. I encourage you to keep trying to make friends with us Americans. So the question for us today is, how do we do friendship the way that God intended for us to do it? As much as we long for it, increasingly we're having a harder time learning how to do it. And you could see just the degradation of friendships over time, and especially with things like the pandemic that we just talked about. So that is the state of friendships. The question is, where do we go from here? So today we're going to look at two qualities of being a friend, and then we'll talk about where do we find the power to fulfill those qualities. We're going to spend a good portion of our time in the book of Proverbs today. Proverbs is found in the Old Testament. It's what we call wisdom literature. And it gives us perspective on how the world works, and then also how do we operate within that world. So if you're looking for wisdom, typically Proverbs is going to have something to say about it. So today we're going to look at the wisdom that we get from Proverbs that applies to friendships. So first quality of friendship. A true friend is constant. A true friend is constant. Proverbs 14:20 says, the poor are shunned even by their neighbors, but the rich have many friends. I know this because I'm very rich. I have lots of friends. Proverbs 19:4, wealth attracts many friends, but even the closest friend of the poor person deserts them. Tim Keller says this about these verses. He says, this shows us the painful truth that most relationships are just transactional. In other words, most people seek friendships for some benefit. Most relationships are just transactional. And that's true of us too, right? We all want to know who won the lottery that bought the ticket at the Neptune Beach Publix, right? Because we want to be friends with that person. Is it any of you? It's okay, just raise a hand. Don't tell anybody. But you lose everything, and it's hard to get people to respond to your text, right? So that's the reality, that most of our relationships are simply transactional. Proverbs 18:24 goes on to say, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. So I told everybody this in the first service, but I'm an only child, and that might explain a lot about me if you don't know me that well. Like, oh, okay, he's an only child. I get it now. It can be a pretty lonely existence. Most of my friends when I was young were imaginary, right? Some of them are still with me today. You know, for the most part, though, if you have brothers and sisters, you know your family is going to stick by you when trouble enters, for the most part. But Scripture tells us that there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. Constant, sticks closer than a brother. I remember this was 2002. My dad passed away, and there were two friends that I had in my life at the time that basically were like, where do we need to go? What do we need to do? We're there with you. One of them was Derek. He drove down with me to South Florida where my dad had passed away, helped me pack up his apartment. But you know those kind of friends, right? The people that say, hey, I'm willing to take on an emotional burden here for you. And that's tough. That's hard. We don't want to do that all the time. Somebody to have put their burdens on us. But a true friend says, I'll take the loss so that you can take the win, so that you can win. Someone who always lets you in and never lets you down. Always lets you in, constant, and never lets you down. If you can't think of anyone that you would disadvantage yourself for, then the evaluation today might be, I'm not really being a true friend. So think of who are the people in your life that you would disadvantage yourself to help. So a friend is constant. Secondly, there is an intimacy to friendship. So a friend is intimate. Proverbs 27:9 says, perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice. Don't you love when people give you advice? We don't want that. We don't want anybody to tell us what to do or how to do it. But a true friend is a confidant, someone that you can trust and risk with. We need someone that knows everything about us and still loves us anyway. We need someone like that. We need someone that knows us fully, that we can be completely transparent with, but that loves us anyway. C.S. Lewis, again, a quote from him, puts it this way. He says, friendship arises out of mere companionship when two or more of the companions discover that they have in common some insider interest or even taste which the others do not share, and which till that moment each believed his own unique treasure or burden, right? That's what we tell ourselves. I'm alone in this, whether it's things that we like or whether it's burdens that we have. The typical expression of opening friendship would be something like, what? You too? I thought I was the only one. What? You too? You do that too? You struggle with that? You love that? Me too. I thought I was the only one. It's a beautiful picture of what friendship can be, but it comes from transparency. It's one of the things that steers us away from close friendships. We have a hard time being transparent with people. Proverbs 27:5, better is open rebuke than hidden love. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Proverbs 28:23, whoever rebukes a person will in the end gain favor, rather than the one who has a flattering tongue. Part of this intimacy and friendship is an invitation for friends to speak into your life. Like I said before, typically we don't like this, but I always think about things like this when you watch shows like, I'll use American Idol as an example. When they do the early rounds before they go to Hollywood where everybody's trying out, they always have like a couple people in there that you're like, where is this person's friends? Because somebody should have told them they don't need to be singing in front of all of America. They've been listening to bad advice or not taking advice at all. So if you sing in this room, ask somebody what they think of your singing that will be honest with you before you go on American Idol. It's also, it's kind of a weird, a couple of years ago, we had a coach here in Jacksonville named Urban Meyer. You may have heard of him. There was a video that surfaced of him doing some bad things up in Ohio. And the first thing I thought when I saw the video was, where is this dude's friends? Because a friend is somebody that would tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, we need to get out of here. This is not going good. So got to have friends like that are willing to pull you out of places when you need to be pulled out of places. We do something here at church. In fact, there's a meeting that we have between the services. We call it a post-production meeting where Derek and whoever is leading the service or the speaker, and Austin is the worship leader, and Leslie is the operation director, we come together and we say, we ask each other for feedback on the service. And we say, Derek may come up and say, I like the way you said this, but maybe if you said this, it could be better. Or let's take this out or rearrange this. And sometimes it's hard to hear that kind of feedback, but critique is something that helps everybody to get better. And I can tell you the early days of that meeting when Derek said we were going to do it was a little awkward. I mean, there was a lot of silence, like nobody wants to say anything. But once we understood that this is where we're all tracking together, it took some time. It was a little awkward at first, but we got there. And it's incredibly valuable because what you're getting in the 11 o'clock is better than what the 9 o'clock people So you should be amazed by that and excited by that. We should be inviting that kind of feedback from people that we know, and people that we trust, people that we're willing to let in. You and I, we need people who will risk being honest with us, even if it hurts, because we know it's for our good. So we know there's a constancy and an intimacy. Those are the two qualities. Lastly, the question is, where do we get the power to be a friend? So a friend is constant, a friend is intimate. Where do we get the power to do that? One of the reasons that we have a hard time forging friendships is we're taking a God-sized need for love in our heart and we're trying to shove it into a relationship. Whether it's a spouse, a friend, it's something like you can't take that God-sized need for love and try and shove it into a human relationship. As human beings, we can't carry the weight of that. And sometimes we're asking people to carry that kind of weight when it's the God-sized need. Jesus talks about in John 15, this is taking place in the upper room before they take communion together and before ultimately he's going to be arrested and his impending crucifixion. But he tells this to his disciples at the table. He says, as the Father has loved me, this is John 15, starting in verse 9. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I've told you this so that my joy may be complete in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give to you. This is my command: love one another. We see lots of one another's in the New Testament, lots of language around how we should interact and be in community with each other. But no words are stronger than these words from Jesus directly to his disciples. He says, no longer do I call you servants, but I have called you friends. And what Jesus is doing here with his disciples is he's inviting them and he's inviting us through his word into his counsel. And he is setting the standard here. He's setting the standard by sacrificing his life for us and sharing his innermost thoughts with us. So he set that standard. He's sacrificed. They don't know it yet, but he's going to sacrifice his life. We know it today, looking back, and he's sharing his innermost thoughts. We have that availability with God. We have that availability with God. An opportunity to be a friend of God's. Verse 16 says, you didn't choose me, I chose you. And we all want to be chosen, don't we? We've all been in that lineup where there's two guys left and nobody's sure whether they want you on the team or not, and they pick the other person. We've all been in that situation. Life feels like that sometimes, that we're being passed over and not chosen. But God is clear here. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that what? So that you might go and bear fruit. You might love one another. You didn't earn this relationship. Earlier in John 15, Jesus talks about being the vine and we are the branches. And that by abiding in his love, experiencing his love, that's how we can love one another. So he's not just the standard, but he's also the source. Not just the standard, but he's also the source. By saying that, coming to my love first, receiving my love as my beloved, what he calls us, he says that's how you can then love. We love, tells us in 1 John, we love because he first loved us. All friendships have a source, don't they? And sometimes, especially today, our source is often activities that we're involved in or activities that our kids are involved in. That's kind of the source of our friendships. That's the people that we orbit around. And it's not a bad way to start, but it has to be rooted in something deeper. Our friendships have to be rooted in something more than just, we do this activity together, we play pickleball together, or, we're in the card group, or our kids play flag football together. Again, great places to start, great places to meet people, but true friendship has to be about something deeper. And all of this is available to us in Jesus because he is the true and ultimate friend. He says, no longer do I call you servants, but I call you friends. And I'm letting you into the master's plans, so to speak. If you're sitting here today, you're struggling with loneliness, maybe you find yourself in that 13% or 12% of people that at this time in life, you would say you have no close friends. Well, according to Scripture, you do have a close friend. You see, he's already stepped into our circle of friendship by sacrificing his life, giving up his glory that was due him. He gave that up on the cross so that you and I could taste it. We could taste that glory and experience it with people around us. Today is not about, here are the steps, be constant, be intimate. Today is not about taking steps to being a better friend. The first relationship that today is about is establishing a relationship with him, establishing a friendship with him, and then asking him, God, show me who, show me where, show me how you want me to forge friendships in this world. There are plenty of ways to do that here at Ocean City. We talked about city groups as an opportunity to do that. We do fight clubs where it's like, 2, 3, 4 people gathered together praying and fighting for each other. That's why we call them fight club. They're not fighting each other, but they're fighting for each other. We need people in our corner fighting for us, praying with us, stepping into that place of being uncomfortable with us. Pray for a circle around you. I need it. You need it. There's one thing, you got to end with a C.S. Lewis quote, right? I mean, all this great stuff he talks about with friendship, but he talks about a relationship that he has with Charles, a guy named Charles and a guy named Ronald. Now, it turns out Ronald is J.R. Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings. We're good friends. And he talks about the experience that they had together as a circle of 3 friends, and Charles passes away. And so he says what he was hoping was that the depth of his relationship with Ronald would grow deeper now that Charles wasn't there. But what he found was the complete opposite. He found that his experience of friendship with Ronald was not what it was before, that there was something missing. He says, far from having more of Ronald, having him to myself, now that Ronald is away, I have less of him. And I was thinking, this is often how it works in the church and our relationship with God is I need you and you need me, because we don't experience the fullness of God unless we experience it together in relationship with each other. I don't get as much out of my relationship with God unless you're in that ride with me. And I love how C.S. Lewis goes on to say, he says, in this friendship, it most resembles heaven, where there's a multitude of people singing and praising together. And there's nothing more powerful than that. We need people like that. You need people like that. I need people like that. We can love each other. We can forge good friendships, good relationships, because we are people that have been loved by him. Let's stand. Father, we just thank you today for the gift that you've given us in friendship. Most of all, the gift that you've given us in friendship with you because of Jesus. That he gave up his glory so that we could taste it, so that we could be people that know what it means to be true, fully known and fully loved. God, we thank you for that. Would we be a people that forges friendships based on the reality, based on the standard that Jesus set for us, and that would fuel us into a depth of relationship with each other, for encouragement, for hope. We just thank you for that gift today.
done that could change the Father's love. Oh, the one who knows me best is the one who loves me most. And there is nothing I have done that could change the Father's love.